Hello, New York Giants fans, and welcome to your Valentine's to the Big Blue View podcast channel. I'm your host, Ed Valentine of Big Blue View, and a happy draft day to everyone. You guys have made it through months and months of speculation, through yet another bad Giants football season, through regime change with a new head coach in Brian Daboll and a new GM in Joe Shane. And today, you finally get to find out who your New York Giants will select with picks 5 and 7 in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft. Please remember to like and subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. Check us out on bigblueview.com. Check out all of the draft content that we've been giving you for months and months now. More than 100 prospect profiles by Chris Flum, consensus big board that we posted the other day, all sorts of news and analysis. Check out our draft hub page for all of that. While I'm here, drop questions if you have them, and I'll do the best I can to answer whatever I can, or give you whatever opinions or analysis that I can. Few things to talk about this morning as we await Joe Shane's call on the first draft that he will ever run as a general manager. Mel Kiper and Todd McShay both released their final mock drafts on Thursday morning. I found it really, really interesting that Kiper and McShay both selected Mississippi State offensive tackle Charles Cross for the Giants at number 5. I don't know exactly how the Giants view the offensive tackle class, how they rank Ike Ekwonu, Evan Neal, and Charles Cross. But listen, there's way too much chatter, way too much smoke, way too much talk about the idea that the Giants really, really like Charles Cross for me to simply dismiss that. I mean, a couple of months ago, you would have clearly said that Cross was offensive tackle 3 or 4 on this board. But as teams have gotten to work him out, as they've seen him at the combine, as they've interviewed him, more and more you're hearing that Charles Cross is the best pass protector in this class, and could be the guy that the Giants really, really want to add to their offensive line on the opposite side from Andrew Thomas. So the Cross love at this point is something that you have to buy, something that you have to believe that is entirely possible. Now, could the Giants choose Evan Neal? Absolutely, they could choose Evan Neal. Could they choose Ike Ekwonu if he's available? Absolutely. I would be happy with any of those 3 for the Giants at the top of round 1, to be honest with you. But I am not going to be at all surprised if the pick is Charles Cross, the guy who is considered the most NFL ready in terms of pass protection, although there are questions about his run blocking, and he is still just 21 years of age, so there will be a learning curve for him. We recall how Andrew Thomas was the 4th overall selection a couple of years ago, and how Andrew Thomas struggled so much as a rookie. I'm not anticipating an absolutely similar difficulty level for Charles Cross, but you have to understand that these guys are rookies. They're not fully developed. What you see, in their first year and in their first few games is not always indicative or representative of the kind of NFL player they will be throughout their career. So just keep that in mind, and don't be surprised at all if Charles Cross is the pick for the Giants at number 5. The other, big time, well-connected draft analyst who dropped his final mock draft today is Daniel Jeremiah of the NFL Network. And Jeremiah did something really, really interesting for the Giants. he selected a wide receiver at number 7. Now, I would be very, very surprised if the Giants do that. Jeremiah gave them Garrett Wilson of Ohio State, and Wilson is generally considered, a guy who could go, toward who could go in the top 10, who could go shortly after that. I do see, and I've written and said several times at Big Blue View and on our podcasts, I do realize that there is a need for the Giants at wide receiver. You look at the questions surrounding Kadarius Toney at this point, the fact that Sterling Shepard is coming off a torn Achilles tendon. His availability is in question for the beginning of the season. He's in the last year of his contract, so he may not be a Giant past the 2022 season. Kenny Gallaudet is coming off a difficult season, and unless Gallaudet plays really, really well in 2022, Gallaudet is another guy who the Giants could choose to move on from after the 2022 season. They will have, as far as I know, they will have given Gallaudet all of his guaranteed money after this season. That'll come off the books. So the Giants could move on from Gallaudet after this year if they're not happy with what they see from him in 2022. There have already been reports that Darius Slayton, off back-to-back disappointing seasons, is perhaps on the trade block. And I quite honestly do not believe that Darius Slayton will be part of the Giants roster in 2022, to be honest with you. I think the Giants, seriously cap-strapped, are going to take the $2.5 million savings that they could get from moving on from Darius Slayton and look for a less expensive option to fill Slayton's roster spot. That perhaps is free agent signee Richie James, maybe it's CJ Board. But I would be surprised, in all honesty, if Darius Slayton is a Giant in 2022. So absolutely there is a need at wide receiver. I just don't see it as a round one top of round one need. Maybe if the Giants trade back, we'll have to see. But I don't see it there, because I think that the Giants absolutely need to address their offensive line. If they keep both picks in the top 10, I think there are other priorities. For me, those being cornerback and edge defender. I think that there's value on the board in those positions in the top 10. And I think that the Giants can address the wide receiver position in a deep wide receiver class. I think they can address the wide receiver position on day 2, maybe with a George Pickens if he's still available, maybe with an Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, or a Sky Moore, maybe on day 3 with a Khalil Shakir or someone like that. But I think there are players in the draft at wide receiver who could step in and help the Giants more than maybe you could find, edge rushers or cornerbacks who could step in quickly at those positions. So I would be surprised if the Giants go wide receiver at number 7. Maybe if they trade back, but I would be really surprised if they do so at 7. All right, another thing to talk about are the rumors surrounding Kadarius Toney and James Bradberry. The latest indications are that the Giants have had some conversations about Kadarius Toney, but Toney did report to the Giants' voluntary workouts this week. So, that's a good sign. There are indications that the Giants want to try to work with Toney. They want to try to work this out. They don't want to give up on his talent. He's a guy who the talent is obvious when you see him, when he gets on the field, when you see what he can do with the ball in his hands. The talent is obvious. The commitment and the maturity is what are in question. And and I think the Giants would love to, would love to work with Tony, would love to draw that talent out of him, and and see what happens there. In terms of Bradbury, there was a CBS report on Thursday morning saying that that there's a possibility that Bradbury could be traded as early as Friday. And listen, this is something that I've been anticipating and talking and writing about as well. When round one of the draft comes and goes, there will be cornerback needy teams who look at the board and think Bradbury is better than anyone on the board. He can make a more immediate impact, and you'll have playoff teams. The Kansas City Chiefs come to mind if they're not able to address cornerback in round one. I'm sure there are other teams as well who might look at the board and think Bradbury can help us more in 2022 and 2023 than anyone we could draft on day 2 or day 3. So it would not surprise me at all if James Bradbury finds himself with a new employer as of Friday. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is the trade down scenario. I have long been in favor of the idea of trading down in the NFL draft. A lot of speculation that that the Giants could be interested in moving back with one of their 2 picks, either at 5 or 7, depending on how the board falls, depending on what sort of offers that they have. And I have always said, in terms of this draft, my home run scenario is offensive tackle and Sauce Gardner. For me, the backup plan would be offensive tackle and maybe edge rusher. I'm not one that really wants to take the risk on Derek Stingley, the cornerback from LSU. The fact that his best tape is from 2019 just bothers me. Maybe if you get that guy, you get an absolute, Pro Bowl caliber player, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get that guy. So for me, the home run scenario is offensive tackle and Sauce Gardner. If Sauce Gardner is off the board, perhaps at 3 to Houston, perhaps at 4 to the Jets, then I would look at trading back seriously in that instance. I think that if you trade back, the Giants have a lot of needs. Maybe they could get back into the middle of the first round and look at a Tyler Linderbaum or look at the linebacker position, or even look at wide receiver, in the back half of the first round, add a day 2 pick, maybe. The ideal scenario, the one that I have said that I would really, really like to see, is to be able to get a 2023 first round pick. There are other teams that already have 2 first round picks in 2023. I think that the Giants, because of the Daniel Jones situation, would really like to have 2 picks in 2023 to at least give them an opportunity to move around the board and move up for a quarterback, if that's what they feel like they need to do. We'll see how it plays out, but like I said, my ideal scenario is offensive tackle and take your pick. We can argue about Aquanu, we can argue about Neal, we can argue about Cross. Offensive tackle and Sauce Gardner. And if those 2 things are not realistic, then I'm absolutely fine, with the idea of moving back with one of those 2 picks and seeing what they could do with those. Question that just came in, Adam sort of piggybacks on what we're talking about here and asks, if the Giants traded down to the middle of the first round, 15 to 20, what sort of picks would they be able to get in a trade? Yeah, that depends. That depends. I think that if you use the mock draft simulators and the trade charts, the Jimmy Johnson trade chart gives you a different value than the Rich Hill trade chart or the Spielberger trade chart. You're looking at some combination of day two picks and maybe a 2023 second round pick, probably, to move down to the middle. Maybe if you get down to 20 where Pittsburgh is, maybe if Pittsburgh, for example, is coming up to get Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett, one of the quarterbacks, if they're trying to jump Carolina, for example, to get Willis, or jump Atlanta at 8 to get a quarterback, maybe you can arm twist them into that round 1 pick in 2023. But you're probably looking at some combination of day 2 and day 3 picks in this draft, maybe a day 2 pick in 2023. Like I said, unless you can arm twist someone into that first round pick in 2023. That's the ideal scenario for trading down. But there's a lot of speculation in this draft, a lot of chatter that because there are really no quarterbacks that teams are dying to trade a lot of draft capital for. I mean, I've seen scenarios where the Steelers make this trade up from 15 or from 20 to 5 for Evan Neal. I'm not sure I buy that, but because of speculation like that, because of chatter that teams are more willing to just sit and let the board unfold, if they're interested in a quarterback, there's been some speculation that the Giants, to move back, might have to take 75 cents on the dollar. They might have to take a little bit less than they might be able to get if a team was coming up for a quarterback. And that might be true. And that might preclude getting that 2023 first round pick. That might mean you have to settle for a second round pick in 2023. And that's not horrible. That is still a pick in the top 100, maybe a pick in the top 50. So that is not bad. That is capital that you can take advantage of. That is capital that you should be able to acquire a good player with. So that's not horrible. It's not the scenario that I would hope for, to be honest with you. But it is a possibility. So we'll see what happens here. We are probably at this point, probably about 12 hours away from your New York Giants being on the clock with the first pick that Joe Schoen will make in his career as a GM. A lot riding on this draft for the Giants as they try to get this thing turned around. Giants have had 5 consecutive double-digit loss seasons. I don't think that anyone should look at 2022 and think that everything that the Giants are doing is about the 2022 season. For me, one of the problems of the Giants the last few years has been, that they have been unwilling to recognize that they really need or really should be in a rebuild. That goes all the way back to Jerry Reese. It goes all the way back to the time when the Giants let Tom Coughlin go and decided to keep Jerry Reese as GM and keep Eli Manning as the quarterback. And they tried to sort of piecemeal things around Eli for several years. And that obviously didn't work, when they could have and probably should have recognized, even back as far as 2016, 17, that it was time to go in a different direction, there was an opportunity for that clean break when they let Coughlin go, and they chose not to take it. Even when Dave Gettleman was hired, Gettleman came in saying that he thought that the Giants could still win with Eli Manning. And I think that part of that was that, to be honest with you, my read on the whole situation is that is what John Mara wanted. John Mara wanted a GM who would come in and tell him that he could make it work with Eli Manning, and that is what Dave Gettleman did, and that is what the Giants tried to do. I don't blame Gettleman for that, because that's probably the only way Gettleman was getting that job, was to say, yeah, sure, I can make it work with Eli, and obviously he couldn't. And I think that, Gettleman, for a couple of years said, oh, you can win while you build. And toward the end of his tenure, finally admitted that he had been wrong about that. The Giants kind of tried to serve two masters, and it really didn't work. I think, Joe Schoen has said he doesn't want to get his head beat in. He doesn't want to be terrible. He doesn't want to be a 3 or 4 win team in 2022. And that, of course, is what he should say. He wants the product to be as good as he can make it when he puts it on the field in September. But Shane has acted with a lot of the cap moves that he's made, the 1-year prove-it signings that he's made thus far. He is acting like a general manager who recognizes that this is actually a rebuild, that this is actually a process, that it will take time to get out from under the mistakes of the past, to build a roster that needs help almost everywhere, and that the be all and end all is not what happens in 2022. That the Giants are not going to win a Super Bowl in 2022. They're not going to instantly become a championship contender on an annual basis, based on what happens this offseason. The goal this offseason is to begin to put some blocks in place that will help the Giants get to that point. So we will find out, what happens, what they do here. And hopefully the Giants will get this thing turned around and begin to be a team that fights for an NFC East championship on an annual basis, that has an opportunity to make a playoff run. And interesting comment that just came in from X Factor Z17 on my take about Coughlin and Reese and Eli. He said that's a poor take, that they never should have fired TC. And listen, I think that's arguable. I think that Tom Coughlin, a guy that I have immense respect for, the Coughlin had become very, very frustrated by the situation with the Giants. He had become desperate in some ways. I think that his treatment of Odell Beckham, where he basically turned a blind eye to the issues that were going on with Beckham, the whole situation with the on-field stuff with him. I can't remember the cornerback's name from Carolina that all of that stuff went down with, but Coughlin basically said he hadn't seen any of it. And I thought that Coughlin had become so desperate to win that what he was doing was sort of ignoring some of the principles that he had built his career on, in terms of discipline, in terms of handling players. But regardless of that, my feeling was that if you were going to move on from Tom Coughlin, that you should have also moved on from Jerry Reese. Because I distinctly remember sitting in that press conference when John Mara said that, Coughlin's goodbye press conference, when John Mara said, this is not Tom Coughlin's fault. This is Jerry Reese's fault. This is the fault of the personnel that we handed Tom Coughlin. And I still shake my head when I think about that, because you're removing the coach, saying it's not his fault, and yet keeping the general manager who you're blaming for the mess. And that I didn't understand. And what I've always thought, yes, at that point in time, Eli Manning still had some good football left. My thought has always been that the Giants, even before they removed Coughlin, had done a lot of half measures. They had removed coaches, they had removed coordinators. Yeah, they had done those kinds of things to try to get things turned around. My take was this was an opportunity for a clean break. This was an opportunity for a full restart. And I would have liked to have seen the Giants take that full restart right there. I think that much of what's gone on in the last few years might not have happened had the Giants done that. I think the Giants would be much farther along at this point, had they made that clean break after the 2015 season. Anyway, that's not a draft topic. It is one that you guys are apparently obviously interested in. It's one that I've had strong feelings about, for quite a while. I want to talk about a couple of players of interest in this 2022 draft class. One of the guys that I am really, really interested in to see where he goes and interested to see in the right scenario if the Giants would take him is Oregon edge defender Kayvon Thibodeaux. Saw a video yesterday of Thibodeaux out in Las Vegas at one of the NFL Play 60 things, I think it was, the pre-draft type things that they do where these kids have media availability. Thibodeaux was asked about the possibility of coming to New York. Obviously, the Giants have 2 picks in the top 10. The Jets have 2 picks in the top 10. So that is definitely, a possibility that Thibodeaux would land in New York. And we know that there are questions about Thibodeaux's personality. There are questions about his off-field interests. To my eyes, there really aren't questions about his talent as a player. Is he Joey Bosa? Is he Myles Garrett? Is he Chase Young? Maybe he's not. Maybe he's slightly below that level, but I think he could be a very, very good NFL player. And what was really interesting to me was when he was asked about New York, he lit up. He talked about New York as his second home. He talked about how much he would love to be in New York, how much he would love the bright lights, how much he would love to be in that environment, in that situation. And I've wondered for a while, even with all of the questions about his personality, I've wondered if his personality is perfect for New York, simply because he wants to embrace all of those things. I wonder if being in New York, where the marketing opportunities, where the opportunities for him to set himself up for life with possibilities, the way Michael Strahan did, for example, the way other players have done, the opportunity for him to set himself up, for a long-term career after football. I've wondered if those things would inspire him to really become the player that his tape suggests he could be. So we will, we'll see what happens, but I think that Thibodeaux in New York would be very, very interesting, and I would be curious to see if that inspires him. Another player that I really wanted to talk about is Derek Stingley, and there's increasing speculation that Stingley could go to the Giants at 5 or 7, particularly if Sauce Gardner is off the board before the Giants get to pick. And I have never really been a Stingley fan. Listen, I see the athleticism. I I've seen the 2019 tape. I know how well he played at that point in time. I know that the LSU program has been a mess for a couple of years and that may have impacted Stingley. I know that he's had injuries the past couple of years, but for me, it's very, very difficult for me to take a player at 5 or 7 when his best tape is 2019 and this is 2022. You can give all sorts of reasons for why those things happened the last couple of years, but if you're taking a player that high in the draft, you're expecting the top end of his ability. You're expecting, hoping for, wanting the player that you saw in 2019. And it's hard for me to take that guy when his best football was so long ago. And he may wind up being an all-pro cornerback. He has those kinds of skills. To me, so does Sauce Gardner. But for me, simply because he's had those injuries, and the foot injury he had was a Lisfranc injury, and those are scary. He supposedly has a clean bill of health, but the injuries remain scary for me. The Lisfranc injury in particular, the fact that his best tape is 2019 is also really, really troublesome for me. So for me, Stingley's not a guy that I would be comfortable picking in the top 7. Did my 7 for 7 yesterday, I think, at Big Blue View. Hopefully you guys have stopped by bigblueview.com and checked that out. But if not, please do so. Please check out all of our coverage that we've been providing at Big Blue View for several months now. More than 100 prospect profiles, several making the case posts, some features on different players, lots of podcasts about various draft scenarios. Please check it all out at Big Blue View, and please remember to subscribe to our channel here on YouTube, and also subscribe to our podcasts, our Big Blue View Radio podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on Facebook, check us out on Instagram, follow Big Blue View on Twitter, and please stay with us tonight as we give you all of the draft coverage we possibly can. Chris Flum and Nick Filato will be live after the draft on YouTube. Dan Berkman will be live to discuss round 1 on Facebook. We'll have the picks, we'll have the analysis, we'll have the reaction from the Giants and interviews with the players. We'll have it all on Big Blue View. So please check all of that out. Stay with us for all of your Giants draft needs. All right, Giants fans, thank you very, very much, as always, for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.